Daniel 9:25 states that the starting point was to be a going forth of the word to restore Jerusalem. Close quote. So central to the SDA Church's system and prophetic chronology is the year 457 BC, which they claim is the starting point of Daniel's 70 weeks. The claim is that Daniel 9:25 says that the start of the 70 weeks can be pinpointed to 457 BC because Ezra chapter 7 tells us that that's when the decree to rebuild Jerusalem was. If they're wrong about this, the entire end times chronology of theirs is off. So, Dr. Frost, question for you. Is Daniel 9:25 pointing to 457 BC? And is there a decree to rebuild the city of Jerusalem in Ezra 7?
No. There's no decree there at all. Search for it all that you want to, but it's not there.
So the question now that we have to raise here is, when was the command given to rebuild Jerusalem? What year did that happen? When was that? Because that's the key that unlocks the entire prophecy. Well, let me give you three possibilities. The people, stay with me now. It's a history lesson. Stay with me. Don't get lost. The people from Babylon returned to Jerusalem in three waves, led by three major leaders. The first was a guy by the name of Zerubbabel. And in 538 BC, King Cyrus said, y'all can go back. I'm freeing y'all. Y'all free. Y'all released. Y'all can go back. No longer are you going to hold you in bondage. You go back and rebuild your land. You can read about that in Ezra chapter 1. But then later on, possibility number 2 is in 457 BC, another guy received a command by a king by the name of Artaxerxes, king of Persia. And he also told Ezra to go back and rebuild the land. He said, Ezra, you're free. You go back and rebuild the land and rebuild the people. All right. Now there's a third possibility. You may recognize this guy. His name is Nehemiah. Well, in 445 BC, he was given permission. He was given permission to return. There was no decree, but he was given permission to return and rebuild the land. So the question that scholars have debated throughout the years is, which of these three commands are in view in this prophecy? Okay. Now, for our purposes, we're going to use 457 BC because I believe that is the most accurate time period. And if you go to BibleHub.com and look at their chronology site, you can see that it's been proven in history that in 457 BC, there was a command that was given to Ezra to go back and return and rebuild the land. So we're going to use as our starting point for the year in which the command was given to be 457 BC. That is our starting point of this prophecy.
Now, we actually have historical records that prove when this happened. There are three potential decrees, three potential moments when a decree went forward to rebuild Jerusalem, where you could grab one of these and say, I'll start my clock on this. Let's go over them. There's actually four, but one is literally just a repeating of a previous decree. Darius digs up this decree we're going to talk about now, Cyrus's decree, and goes, oh yeah, there's a decree, but there's nothing new about it. So if his is valid, then Cyrus is the one. So Cyrus, in about 539 BC, give or take, this is when he brings up a decree for them to go back to Jerusalem. This is what Daniel was praying about. When are we going back? That's what he says. Send them back in to go and rebuild. Artaxerxes Longimanus. Was he really a tall guy? Is that what I think that's what that means. I'm pretty sure. My linguistic skills have not failed me. 457 BC, he sends out a decree for them to go and restore such and such, to do something, basically. There's a decree that's there. We'll get into the details in a second. And then Artaxerxes, the same guy, Later on in his reign, 444 BC, he gives out another decree. That's it. These are our 3 decrees. Again, Darius, another decree. He's not worth mentioning because if it's only a reiteration of Cyrus, he just goes, oh yeah, Cyrus. So if his is valid, then we should go from Cyrus's date. This is not something worth considering. So let's look at the details. Which of these 3 decrees should we take as our starting point? Well, Cyrus, in about 539, we read about this in 2 Chronicles chapter 36 and Ezra chapter 1. The next one, Artaxerxes, during the first year of his reign, about 457. We read about this in Ezra. I won't read you the whole decree. It's just too long for tonight. It's a lot of information. You're welcome to read it. There it is. Ezra 7, verses 11 through 28. This happened during the first year of his reign, but like Cyrus's decree, it's only for the temple. It repeats over and over again, only for the temple. Go build the temple. Go build the temple. You see, Jewish religious life could not continue apart from the temple existing. And so he says, go build the temple. And in response to this decree, the temple was worked on. They did start to rebuild the temple. They laid the foundations. They started, beautifying it, making it better. It seems that there had been some work from Cyrus's time, but there needed to be a lot more work. This may have been a beautification of the temple, or it may have been an extension of it. But there was work done on the temple for sure. The city, however, I can say this, unlike Cyrus's decree, the city was built in a reasonable time after this decree. About 60 years later, according to Josephus. I don't know of any other source that gives us a time period except him on this. The city was rebuilt about 60 years later in about, 396. Supposedly that was when the city was finished, the last finishing touches on it, So at least we have the city getting rebuilt within a reasonable period of time, but we don't have the decree specifically to build the city. But there are some who think that this is the decree, and they take this as the decree. So let me show you the math that they use. 483 years, right? Here's our timeline, our fancy schmancy timeline once again, with all my massive skills of PowerPointness. I wish. So Daniel's prophecy came in about 538 BC. Then Artaxerxes' first year, either 457 or 456, that's when the decree came out. We're not given a date or a month, just in the first year of Artaxerxes. So his first year overlaps 457 and 456, so it could have been either one. So that's when the decree starts. 483 years later, if you do the math, brings you to 26 or 27 AD. Now, if you do the math on a calculator, you'll be 1 year off because there is no year 0 when you go from BC to AD. There's no 0. It's just 1 BC. The next year is 1 AD. So you have 26 or 27 AD. That would be the time when, if you take this as the beginning year, that's when Messiah is supposed to show up. Well, what's 26, 27 AD? This is commonly thought to be a very feasible timeline for Jesus' baptism by John, the beginning of Christ's public ministry. That's very interesting. And that fits with the scripture. And that fits with the timeline of history. And it fits with historical records of a decree to go out and rebuild in Jerusalem.
All of that is an invention to save Ellen G. White.
Yeah, right. It's an escape hatch. It's a desperation Hail Mary attempt.